Hello everyone and welcome. This is Christine with Patter Crafts. Today I'm here with a Scrapping for Less design team project. I will be using this stamp set here from Scrapping for Less called Winter Fairies, and the pattern paper pad also from Scrapping for Less called Winter in Pink. This is two of the three items that Scrapping for Less has released in January 2020. This is their first product release. There is another smaller stamp set that they did release that I'll use in a future project in the month of January. But today's card just focuses on this larger stamp set and the pattern paper. So for my card today, I am stamping out this fairy several times onto some Copic friendly paper. This is just 100-pound cardstock that I purchased from a office supply store. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for Copic coloring. It tends to bleed a little bit, but I had purchased 2 reams because it was buy one get one free, and so I've just been using it. I wouldn't buy it again though, and I certainly won't recommend it to you because it's really not that great. Anyway, I am also using the MFT Extreme Black ink to stamp out my image because I will be using Copic markers. This is a Copic friendly ink. So this little snowflake is a little bit bigger than I thought it was, so I probably should have separated my fairies a little bit. So what I ended up doing, because I got lazy and I didn't want to make a mask, I just brought over a piece of paper to kind of cover up some of the area, so I could still sort of fill in those spaces without getting the snowflake on my fairies. I should have maybe thought about that before I stamped out all of my fairies. But it is a background and I'm putting some vellum over the top, so really I think in the end no one's really going to notice that that's not stamped right up to the fairy anyway. So I'm going to put that aside, let the ink, soak in and dry for a moment, and then I am stamping out the 2 fairy images from the stamp set. Now the one sleeping on the moon I am not using today, but I will be using it in a upcoming project, so I'm just going to go ahead and stamp it out now, and I will die cut it with my Scan and Cut so it will be ready to go. Just kind of save me time in the long run. So for our little fairy, that will be the main image, or at least the main focal point on this card, I am going to color partially in Copic markers, and then I'm going to be doing some paper piecing with the pattern paper. So I am using some reds and some pinks here for her wings, but in the final product you'll see that I bring in another fairy because I just didn't like the way that this came out. So I do end up recoloring that, but I don't do that in the video. So if it looks a little different, that is why. So I am going to be just coloring in, as you saw, her wings, her skin, her hair, and the wand. I'm going to use some pattern paper for her hat and her dress. This is just quick Copic coloring. I like the size of this image. It's really good size for card making. I tend to like bigger images than really small ones. So she's perfect. Just adding a little bit of purple here. So these colors are colors that I will use on the second fairy, just I bring in some BGs. I was really excited when I got my design team package for January and saw that Scrapping for Less has their own release. It's exciting to see them grow, and I'm excited to see what happens with this particular release. So for my background piece here, I'm only going to show the coloring of this one fairy, but basically all the fairies are going to be colored the same way. I am just using some cool grays on all these images. That way my fairy that I've colored in paper piece will kind of stand out, but then I have a really interesting background. So the colors that I'm using today are just C5, C3, and C1. It was really interesting using just the 3 colors that were also just gray. It seems like it should be fairly easy, but this is the first time I've done anything sort of like this, so I found it almost kind of like a little bit harder than I anticipated. So I end up doing a lot of kind of back and forth, especially on the wings. I didn't want things to be too dark, but I didn't want them to be too light, and in the end, I'm really, really happy with how it came out. This first fairy was a little difficult, but once I started, I was able to do the other ones the same way, and it was pretty easy. So I don't show all of the coloring, so we're going to go ahead now and grab 2 pieces of pattern paper. I thought I was going to use one for like her hat and the other one for her outfit, but I end up using just the same for her hat and her outfit, which ends up being this pink paper here with the snowflakes. So I've stamped out the image. I'm going to grab my cutter bee scissors and I'll cut out the little pieces. So that is my background completely finished. Here's my piece of vellum that I'm going to put there in the center. And here's my little fairy, and you can see I recolored her wings. And then I decided I didn't want the snowflake dress to be all pink, so I ended up doing the neck portion and the waist portion there, as you can see, like in purple. And I just cut out the hat, like the top part of the dress and the bottom part of the dress. So I'm just using liquid glue, which I love to use when I'm paper piecing because it gives you that extra couple of seconds to actually put it where it needs to go so it lines up nicely on the image. I absolutely love using pattern paper for clothes and outfits. I don't necessarily love the fussy cutting part of it, but I love the outcome. So it is something that I think I'm going to be incorporating more this year. So I used just the acrylic block just to kind of hold the pieces down a little bit so that they don't move while that glue has a minute or 2 to dry. And you'll see there our fairy is pretty much complete. So all that we need to do now is just kind of put the card together. So we're going to go ahead, I'm using this really pretty pink 100-pound cardstock, no, I think it's 100-pound cardstock, adding my background, adding my fairy to the vellum, and then behind the fairy on the vellum is where I'm adding the glue for the vellum to put that in the middle of the card. I'm going to put that aside for just a moment while I do the inside panel. I'm just using some London Fog Memento ink, which is a very light gray ink, for another of the images from the front, using the Sentiment Happy Birthday from the stamp set. And I'm just going to adhere that inside. That is all I'm going to do for the inside. And lastly, I'm just adding a little bit of Nouveau drops. So I'm using this white Blizzard. It's like a clear, glittery color for the rim of her hat, and then I'm using this pink sparkly one. I think it's called Enchanted Pink. And that is it. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more and you're not already, please hit that subscribe button. But until next time, bye.